On the 13th of August 1961, the people of Berlin woke up to the crowning moment of German division, the construction of the Berlin Wall. Over the course of this series about the GDR, the question of the wall consistently comes up, and rightly so. It was at the end of the day torn down by the people of East Berlin in 1989 with the hopes of reforming the country into a better form of socialism than that had been over the course of the 1980s. We're often told that the wall was built purely to prevent the people of the GDR from leaving, and whilst emigration certainly played a role, very little in history is monocausal. There are always more factors hidden under the surface, yet these are very seldom mentioned when it comes to the Berlin Wall. In order to address this and present the other side of the story, I'd like to read from a pamphlet that the GDR released to the world in February of 1962 to explain why the wall was built and what it would take for it to be removed. Newspapers, radio and television report daily about Berlin and West Berlin in many languages throughout the world. They often speak or write of a state frontier or of a wall. It may be very difficult for you to form a valid picture from all these reports, which frequently contradict each other. We want to help you to do so. We try to imagine what would be the considerations of a citizen of a foreign state if he wanted to gain clarity about the problems in West Berlin, and we would like to reply to these considerations. First consideration: where exactly is Berlin situated? A glance at the map suffices. Berlin lies in the middle of the German Democratic Republic, exactly 180 kilometres or 112.5 miles to the east of its western frontier. A quite normal locality for the capital of a state. Only one thing is not normal at all: that a hostile, undermining policy and disruptive acts have for years been carried on from the western part of this city against the surrounding state territory. West Berlin Mayor Willy Brandt called West Berlin a thorn in the side of the GDR. Would you like to have a thorn in your side? We don't either. But Brandt even proclaims quite frankly, we want to be the disturber of the peace. Second consideration: did the wall fall out of the sky? No. It was the result of developments of many years standing in West Germany and West Berlin. Let us recall preceding events. In 1948, a separate currency reform was introduced in West Germany and West Berlin. The West German reactionaries thereby split Germany and even West Berlin into two currency areas. The West German separatist state was founded in 1949. Bonn thereby turned the zonal border into a state frontier. In 1954, West Germany was included in NATO. Bonn thereby converted the state frontier into the front line between two pact systems. The decision on the atomic armament of the West German Bundeswehr was made in 1958. Thus, Bonn continues to aggravate the situation in Germany and Berlin. Repeatedly, the annexation of the GDR is proclaimed as the official aim of Bonn policy, most recently in the statement of the Adenauer Christian Democratic Union on the 11th of July 1961, which reads, "A reunification of which every German patriot dreams of is a reunification with banners and pennants and waving flags, and a victorious troop of the Bundeswehr marching through the Brandenburg Gate with music." Thus did the anti-national, aggressive NATO policy create the wall which today separates the two German states, and also goes through the middle of Berlin. The Bonn government and the West Berlin Senate have systematically converted West Berlin into a centre of provocation, from where 90 espionage organisations, the American broadcasting station in West Berlin, and revanchist associations organise acts of sabotage against the GDR and the other socialist countries. Through our protective measures of the 13th of August 1961, we have only safeguarded and strengthened that frontier which was already drawn years ago and made into a dangerous front line by the people in Bonn and West Berlin. How high and how strongly fortified a frontier must be depends, as is common knowledge, on the kind of relations existing between the states of each side of the frontier. Third consideration. Did the wall have to come? Yes and no. We have submitted more than 100 proposals for understanding on the renunciation of atomic armament and on the withdrawal of the two German states from NATO or the Warsaw Pact. If things had gone according to our proposals, the situation in Germany would not have been aggravated and consequently there would have been no wall. Especially since 1958, the GDR and the Soviet Union have repeatedly told the West Berlin Senate, the Bonn government and the Western powers, be reasonable. Let us eliminate the abnormal situation in West Berlin together. Let us start negotiations. Why did Bonn and West Berlin reject these proposals? Why did they, instead, step up agitation to an unprecedented degree before the 13th of August? The wall had to come because they were bringing about the danger of a conflict. Those who do not want to hear must feel. Fourth consideration. What did the wall prevent? We no longer wanted to stand by passively and see how doctors, engineers and skilled workers were induced by refined methods unworthy of the dignity of man to give up their secure existence in the GDR and work in West Germany or West Berlin. These and other manipulations cost the GDR annual losses amounting to 3.5 thousand million marks. But we prevented something much more important with the wall. West Berlin's becoming the starting point for a military conflict. The measures we introduced in the 13th of August in conjunction with the Warsaw Pact states have cooled off a number of hotheads in Bonn and West Berlin. For the first time in German history, the match which was to set fire to another war was extinguished before it had fulfilled its purpose. Fifth consideration. Was peace really threatened? Indian journalist R.K. Karanjia shall give you the answer to the question. He published a sensational report from Berlin in the biggest Indian weekly, Blitz, in which the world public is warned against the West Berlin powder keg. K.R. Karanjia wrote, quote, "It, the protective wall of the GDR, served the cause of world peace since it halted the advance of the German neo-Hitlerites towards the east, forced the world to recognise the reality of the division of Germany and thus support negotiation." Unquote. If further evidence of the aggressive intentions of the West German government is needed, it is provided by the authoritative West German employer's newspaper, the Industry Courier, which regretfully wrote exactly 19 days after the 13th of August 1961, quote, "A reunification with the Bundeswehr marching victoriously through the Brandenburg Gate to the beating of drums. Such a reunification will not take place in the foreseeable future." Unquote. Bonn heads were really haunted by ideas of such a victorious entry. That would have meant war. Sixth consideration. Who is walled in? According to the exceedingly intelligent explanations of the West Berlin Senate, we have walled ourselves in and are living in a concentration camp. But in that case, why are the gentlemen so excited? Obviously, because in reality, their espionage centres, their revanchist radio stations, their fascist soldiers associations, their youth poisoners and their currency racketeers have been walled in. They're excited because we have erected the wall as an anti-fascist protective wall against them. Does something not occur to you? West Berlin Mayor Brandt wails that half of the GDR, including the workers in the combat groups of the working class, is armed. What do you think of a concentration camp whose inmates have weapons in their hands? Seventh consideration. Who breaks off human contacts? Of course, it is bitter for many Berliners not to be able to visit each other at present, but it would be more bitter if a new war were to separate them forever. Moreover, when the GDR was forced to introduce compulsory entry permits for West Berlin citizens on the 23rd of August in the interest of its security, we at the same time offered to open up entry permit offices in municipal railway stations in West Berlin. In fact, we opened them and issued the first permits. Who closed them by force? The same Senate of that Mr. Brandt who is today shedding crocodile tears about contacts being broken. The GDR has maintained its offer. If we had our way, Berliners could visit each other despite the wall. 8th consideration. Does the wall threaten anyone? Bonn propaganda describes the wall as a monstrous evidence of the aggressiveness of world communism. Have you ever considered it to be a sign of aggressiveness when someone built a fence around his property? 9th consideration. Who is aggravating the situation? The wall? It stands there quite calmly. Former French Premier Reynaud said already on the 19th of August 1961, according to UPI, quote, "The sealing off measures of the East Berlin government did not increase but lessened the danger of a Third World War." Unquote. In reality, the situation is being aggravated by persons who play at being the strongman on our state borders, who are turning West Berlin into a NATO base and daily inciting West Berliners against the GDR. Municipal railway cars are being destroyed, border guards attacked and brutally shot, tunnels dug for agents and bomb attacks made on the GDR's frontier security installations. Does that serve relaxation? One must really ask why attacks on the GDR state border in West Berlin are not subject to court prosecution as in other states. The Brandt Senate even presents its respects to the provocateurs. 10th consideration. Is the wall a gymnastic apparatus? The wall is the state frontier of the German Democratic Republic. The state frontier of a sovereign state must be respected. That is so the world over. He who does not treat it with respect cannot complain if he comes to harm. West German and West Berlin politicians demand that the wall be removed. We are not particularly fond of walls either, but please consider where the actual wall runs in Germany. The wall which must be pulled down in yours and our interests. It is the wall which was erected because of the fateful Bonn NATO policy. On the stones of this wall stand atomic armament, entry into NATO, revanchist demands, anti-communist incitement, non-recognition of the GDR, rejection of negotiations, the frontline city of West Berlin. So, make your contribution to the pulling down of this wall by advocating a reasonable policy of military neutrality, peaceful coexistence, normal relations between the two German states, the conclusion of a peace treaty with Germany, a demilitarised free city of West Berlin. That is the only way to improve the situation in Berlin, to safeguard peace, a way which can, one day, also lead to the reunification of Germany. The wall says to the warmongers, he who lives on an island should not make an enemy of the ocean. Decide in favour of the recognition of realities. Don't join in the row over the wall. Perhaps you don't want socialism. That is your affair. But should we not come to an agreement jointly to refrain from doing anything that leads to war and do everything that serves peace? The Berlin Wall claimed the lives of 187 people who tried to cross it between 1961 and 1989, as well as 24 border guards who defended it. Each death a tragedy. Borders, especially ones between two highly hostile blocks, are not safe places. 7,216 people have died at the US border between 1998 and 2017. 34,000 refugees have died trying to cross over the Mediterranean into the EU as the coast guards leave them to die. Why does our society care more for white Germans than thousands of people perishing in the third world, escaping imperialist war and oppression? It is a clear example of the racist system that we live under. The Berlin Wall was a specific response to the conditions of that time and a measure that was intended to be temporary, but it was maintained by the aggression of an imperialist bloc that called for the wall to fall whilst persisting with the military measures that necessitated its construction. I'd just like to say a massive thank you to my patrons, especially over this last month where I've been cracking on with my dissertation, and that's over now. And to make up for it, hopefully this month I'll get out another video about the Northern question. Northern independence, the like of that, as it's been quite topical recently. But without further ado, I would like to say a massive thank you to my indomitable Helden der Arbeit, my heroes of labour, who are a woo and deep red wine. Of course, as well, we have the Pint Men as well, who have actually significantly grown in number. So we have Andy J, Cap, Dave Jennings, Dan Ball, Max Parsons, Ryan Wilkinson and Tony Greer. Thank you all. I'll have a pint in your honour. And of course we have the ever faithful party comrades. We have Berrimans, Graham Live, Kareem, Lemon Meringue Kush, Martin Barakov, Modsognia, Simon Bilodeau Colbert and Skelson. Thank you very much for your support, comrades. Solidarity. Take care.